And we'll just get right into it. Get started? Yeah. All right, so on to the next slide. So this is the slavery of the children of Israel. So now, the three methods to prove who are the children of Israel today. Officer Yakora, go ahead and read that.
Prophecy, geography, the curses.
Absolutely. So now, who can tell me what it means by prophecy being one of the methods that we use to prove that we are the Israelites? Brother Darrell.
Our children seem to be primarily caught up in the welfare system.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Okay.
Going back to the prophecy that our sons and our daughters shall be given unto other people. Purposely, sabotage our kids and send them over to other countries.
Okay. All right. So now, prophecy. Now, what's the next one? The geography, right? So now, what's a location in the scriptures that speaks about where we will be located in these last days? So, of course, when you go to the book of Jeremiah 23:8, it does speak about how we will be delivered from the land of the north, okay, from the north country, all right? So then, of course, the third method would be the curses, all right, which we know are Deuteronomy 28:15-68. That's how, that's the third method of how we spiritually identify ourselves, of course, you know, as the children of Israel, all right? So now, all of these three methods, when you put them together, of course, you use them right, it will not lead you astray. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So now this is dealing with the vision of Abraham in the book of Genesis, chapter 15 and verses 13-14. All right, so now this is dealing with a little bit of a prophecy, geography, all in one, and a curse. Okay, go ahead.
Genesis 15:13-14.
Mm-hmm.
And he said unto Abram, know of your certainty that thy seed, the Israelites, shall be a stranger in the land that is not theirs, America, and shall serve them, Edomites, and they shall afflict them 400 years, 1619 to 2019.
Right, so that's just the approximate America. So of course now this is the Most High again showing Abram that his seed, all right? So remember, the children of Israel do come from the seed of Abraham, okay? And it said they will be strangers in a land that is not theirs, all right? So of course, being strangers in a land that is not theirs is dealing with America, all right? So of course, some may say this is talking about Egypt, all right? But remember, we did not serve the Egyptians for 400 years being under bondage, all right? That's in the next verse. Go ahead.
And also that nation, Egypt, whom they shall serve 80 years, will I judge. And after shall they come out with great substance.
Absolutely. So now, all right, it says we will serve them, okay, for 80 years, all right? So then he says the Lord said he would judge them. How did he judge them? He judged them with the 10 plagues, all right? And then also he said afterward we will come out with great substance. So remember, that's when we had spoiled the Egyptians. We borrowed from, you know, every woman and man from his neighbor. And of course, the date that the Israelites came out approximately would be 1446 BC. All right, so make sure you jot that down. You can go back and reference that for yourself. So now when you're dealing with the prophecy of the date of 1446, you can go back and read 1 Kings chapter 6, verse 1. All right, the temple, the foundation of the temple was laid, I believe, in 966 BC. And of course, you add 480 years to 966, you'll get this date right here, 1446 BCE. All right, when you read 1 Kings chapter 6 and verse 1, it'll once you read it, you'll understand it perfectly. All right, so just make sure you write down that date. Next slide. So now, who are the Israelites? All right, so of course, as you can see, these are the 12 tribes of Israel. All right, so now you can read them out.
Who are the 12 Israelites? Genesis 29:32-35 and 41:51-53.
Right, so that's where you can find the majority of the tribes, the birth and the meaning of their names. Also 41, 51-53, that's dealing with Ephraim and Manasseh, okay? So now the asterisk dealing with Levi is just showing you that Levi did not have an inheritance amongst the rest of the tribes of Israel, okay? So he didn't get a portion of land. Remember, he was set up as a franchise throughout the land of Israel. So he was elected to be the priest, okay? So everybody else that you see on there, they were allotted land and given a portion of land in the land of Israel. Go ahead. I mean, does everybody got that? I mean, if y'all want to write those scriptures down. So I'm talking about, we'll move a little bit ahead of myself. So bear with me here. All right. So let's move on to the next slide. So now, go ahead, read that.
Israelites or Africans?
So now that's the question, man. Are we Israelites or are we Africans? Okay, so remember, many of our people, that they do associate themselves with the term African or African American, right, which are two continents. Okay, so remember, Israelite is a nationality. It is a nation of people. All right, it lets you know that you are the descendants of Israel whose name was changed. Excuse me, Israel who was formerly Jacob. All right, his name was changed. Okay, African is supposed to be the continent of Africa. All right, or the inhabitants of Africa, of course. But we know that it was not originally called that name by scripture. All right, remember, it was called the land of Ham. All right, so are we Israelites or are we Africans? Go ahead. So now, this is the definition of Ham. You can go ahead and read that out.
The definition of Ham: the youngest son of Noah, born probably about 96 years before the flood, and one of the 8 persons to live through the flood. He became the progenitor of the dark races, not the Negroes.
So remember, it's a lot. All right, but not the Negroes. So what are the dark races? All right, how do they break down or categorize?
But the Egyptians, Ethiopians, Libyans, and the Canaanites.
So the Egyptians, all right, Ethiopians, Libyans, and Canaanites. Okay, so there's a lot of history behind those nations. That you can read about. I believe in the Josephus, it does give the migration of each individual tribe and where they came from after where they went after they had left the land of Shinar. Okay, so Ham, he was the youngest son of Noah. He was one of 8 persons to live through the flood. He became the progenitor of all the dark races. All right, but remember, not the Negroes. All right, Brother Lacombe, why does it say, man, not the Negroes? Why are we not a part of the dark races, or the considered dark races, the Egyptians, Ethiopians, and the Libyans, and the Canaanites?
Because, well, first of all, we dark too. But,
of course.
But the reason why we're not them is because we don't follow the same customs they follow. The Africans, they worship idols.
Right. Absolutely. They do worship idols, and they do have some other profane things, which we're going to see here in this slide. But the thing I wanted to point out, dealing with the Negroes, okay? So remember, we're considered a Shemitic stock, right? Okay, so of course they are a Hamitic. We're a Shemitic people, so that is the difference that this scholar is pretty much showing us. All right, that the Negroes are not considered of the Hamitic stock. Okay, go ahead. Next slide. This is dealing with the definition of black. All right, read this.
Spanish and Portuguese from Latin, Niger, which is black.
So that's what it means in Latin, Niger. Okay, so that's what black means. All right, in the Latin. All right, so it says. I'm sorry. So the Spanish and Portuguese form of Latin Niger. Okay, so which means black, and it's going to give you the rest of it. Go ahead.
Member of the black-skinned race of Africa, 1550s, from Spanish or Portuguese, negro, black, from the Latin negro, nominative, Niger, black, dark, sable, dusky, figuratively, gloomy, unlucky, bad, wicked.
Right, so of course, see, remember, as it says from Spanish and Portuguese word, so it says, it means negro, right? So of course, many of us have heard that term if you're dealing with like Mexicans and Hispanics and all that, right? So then, of course, it means black, all right, from the Latin negro, all right, which is the nominative of Niger, black, dark, dusky. Of course, and then it figuratively means gloomy, unlucky, bad, or wicked, all right? So that's what they associate the color black with. So when you say that you're a black man, You know what I mean? You're looking at the term of you're a bad man, all right, or a wicked man. You see what I'm saying? So we have to be careful with the terms that, you know what I'm saying, we label ourselves, okay? Black Hebrew Israelite, unlucky Hebrew Israelite, or wicked Hebrew Israelite. You have to be careful, okay? Go to the next slide. So now this is just giving you another term of the usage of it. Okay, so it's Negro. It says offensive, often offensive, a black person. Okay, so then the usage noted at black. All right, Spanish and Portuguese again, Negro. In the Latin, Niger. All right, so you'll see that in the book of Acts. It was a brother by the name of Niger.
Yeah.
All right. Next slide. So now Ham, the progenitor of the dark races. So as you can see, look how dark these Hamites are. All right, go ahead. So now you have the Egyptians as it read, or the children of Mizraim. Next. Okay, so of course, if you familiarize yourself with the Zulus and the Watusis, go ahead. All right, so then you have the Cushites or the Ethiopians. Go ahead. So I believe these are like Somalians. Go ahead. The Canaanites. Go ahead. So now it says Leviticus. Now read this in Leviticus chapter 18. So now we're gonna start dealing with the customs of these nations. Go ahead.
Leviticus 18, 2 through 3.
Mm-hmm.
Speak unto the children of Israel and say unto them, I am the Lord your God. After the doings of the land of Egypt, wherein ye dealt, shall ye not do.
Mm-hmm.
And after the doings of the land of Canaan, whither I bring you, shall ye not do. Neither shall ye walk in their ordinance.
Absolutely. Homosexuality, they didn't practice incest. All right. Of course, they were practicing all types of forms of idolatry. Of course, they worshiped the sun. They worship hippopotamuses. They worship cats. They worship dogs. So alligators, what you want to call them, crocodiles. So they had all of these different forms of customs in which they kept. So the Lord is letting us know, man, not to do after the manner of those nations. All right. Same thing with the Canaanites. They were big on homosexuality too, child sacrifice, all of the above. Okay. So now the Lord said, neither shall you walk in their ordinances, meaning their laws. Go ahead. So now, African customs, which they practice, look, explain this one on my right. This Hamite, what is he drinking?
Blood.
Absolutely. All right. Are we supposed to drink the blood?
No.
Absolutely not. All right. So then this right here, this is called female circumcision. All right. So now, Brother Darrell, who was given the custom of circumcision?
I believe it was the custom of circumcision belongs to the children of Israel.
Absolutely. But who was it given to first?
Given to us by to Abraham.
Absolutely. So it was given to Abraham. All right. So remember, in the book of Genesis chapter 17, the Most High established that covenant in the flesh with Abraham. All right. So remember, even then, the Most High said in the book of Genesis chapter 9, when he spoke to Noah, he said, a man is not supposed to eat of the blood because remember, it is the life of the flesh. All right. Go ahead. So there are various other reasons why we're not supposed to drink the blood, but we'll go into that for another time. So you can read this, right?
African customs, homosexuality, and idolatry.
Absolutely. So
Idolatry, it's a lot.
So you have them dealing in levels of homosexual rituals, right? This is where they're dancing here. So that is a phallic symbol that they're using, okay? In their celebration, all right? So this one, he's carving idols, okay? So remember the Most High talked about things that were made with hands, all right? How people began to worship them. And it began to become a great sin to, to the people of the earth, all right? So you can read about that in the book of, I believe, Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 14. All right, definitely check that chapter out because it does speak extensively on idol worship. All right, go ahead. Another one dealing with them washing themselves in urine, cow's urine. All right, so they think that there are healing properties that come from washing themselves. I remember it was an East Indian man, right, that we saw, and he was drinking urine because he said that it would keep him from getting sick.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. rubbing it all on his skin, his face.
Skin and all of that. So those are the customs, man, of the nation. Remember, the Most High never told us to do none of that. That stuff is seriously profane, man. And the defilement of the temple. Look at this. This is how they would get the cow to, push his manure out, all right, blowing in the behind of the cow. Go ahead. So now, of course, bestiality is another one. So remember, some of these, a lot of these customs you'll find in the book of Leviticus 18, okay, even dealing with scarification, all right, which is printing marks upon you, all right, defiling your temple. So these are the things in which the nations, man, this is what they were doing, all right. So these were Hamitic customs, okay. So you got to ask yourself, many of our brothers and sisters that do profess themselves to be Pan-African and African, well, you know what? Why don't you go have sex with a goat? Why don't you mark your flesh up with all types of scars and things of that nature? Why don't you put plates in your lip? You know what I mean? If that's your culture, then that's what you need to be doing, right? Many of these Pan-African, Afrocentric cats, man, did not hold fast to many of the customs of the so-called ancestors, right? Because sacrifice, animal sacrifice, and all of that, that's a very big part. That was a very big part of their customs. All right, ritual sacrifices and things like that. Okay, worshiping baboons and hippopotamuses and all of that. Okay, go ahead. So now read this. This is the book of Leviticus chapter 20. Go ahead.
Leviticus 20 and 23. And ye shall not walk in the manners of the nation, which I cast out before you. For they committed all these things, and therefore I abhorred them.
Right, so this is the reason why the Most High hated them. All right, especially the Canaanites, man. That's why he sent us in there to destroy them and put them out of the land. Because many of the abominations, man, that they were practicing. All right, go ahead. So remember, if it said that they say God doesn't hate, that's the scripture that shows you right there, man, that the Lord does hate. All right, he said that he hates the nations, man, that were practicing all of those abominations. All right, that chapter is dealing with the judgments. All right, so let's read this.
Jeremiah 13 and 23. Can the Ethiopian change his skin, or the leper his spots? May ye also do good that are accustomed to do evil.
Jeremiah speaking about it in this verse in particular. He said, can an Ethiopian change his skin or leper change his spots? Then may ye also do good that are accustomed to evil. But there,
he pretty much he's saying that, you know, if you when you let yourself you know, they're accustomed to doing evil. And you're accustomed to doing evil, that means it ain't no light in you, no matter how much you want them to.
Okay.
You know, like you said, like iron rust, surely they evil gonna rust. You know?
Okay. But check this out. Close. Check this out. So he's speaking about the spiritual attributes and that these nations do have. All right.
Right.
So now I'm gonna show you that. All right. Go to the next slide. So can an Ethiopian change his skin and can a leper change his spots? All right. So how are they that are accustomed to doing evil do good? Okay. So now it's just the Most High is going to show you, man, that there's a difference between us and them, physically and spiritually. All right. Though, like my brother said earlier, man, we have the same skin, right? We're dark. We're both dark, but our characteristics, our mannerisms, our habits are completely different. Okay. And this is how the Lord he begins to separate us from the different nations, man. Like with the Israelite brother here, this is an NFL ball player, right? You could look at his physique and you could look at the vibrancy of his skin, you know what I mean? And his skull structure, all of that, man. And you could tell he's completely different, has a completely different build from what we call an African, all right? Or a Hamite, you see what I'm saying? So of course you look at him, his facial features, his structure is just completely different. Okay. Also the spirit and mannerisms. All right. So as you can see, bam. All right. Like I said, one people is stronger than the other people. We're 10,000 times stronger than them. All right. Go ahead. Of course, same thing dealing with the women. All right, this is beauty to them. Then putting, what is that, clay and butter in their hair. All right, our sisters, they wear weaves. You know what I mean? Fake hair. But you can still just see the beauty, the vibrancy in an Israelite woman. All right. Her nature, her habits, and things like that when she's in righteousness. And of course, you can see the difference in, a Hamitic woman. All right. Her habits and things of that nature. All right. Those are maybe some things that you guys should, you could look up. All right. Go ahead. So now read this, brother.
Jeremiah 2:14.
Mm-hmm.
Is Israel a servant?
Mm-hmm.
Is she a homeborn slave? Why is she spoiled?
What is it talking about?
Excuse me.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So now Jeremiah's asking the question, right? So is Israel a servant? Are we supposed to be servants? Absolutely not. We're not supposed to be servants. Remember, we're supposed to be on top. We're supposed to be above all nations that are upon the face of the earth. So then he says, is he a homeborn slave? Absolutely not. So he's like, why is he spoiled? Well, we're spoiled because of our transgression. Okay, go ahead. Next slide. So now these are all of the captivities of the judges. Okay, so you can check these out. You can definitely get into them and read them. All right. So we was under the oppression of the Mesopotamians for over 8 years. All right. We were under the Moabites for 18 years. The Canaanites, 20 years. The Midianites, 7 years. The Amorites, 18 years. Excuse me. The Ammonites, 18 years, and then also the Philistines, 40 years. Okay. So now, when you look at all of this, the vast majority of this was in our own land, all right, as we were being oppressed. Okay, so all of these different time frames, of course, they're nothing to, of course, the captivity that we're serving right now. You're talking about 390 some years and counting. All right. So is there a note on there? Do you see a note? It did calculate how long we were in captivity altogether. I believe it's like 114 years that we were in captivity. So remember, we were in the land of Israel during the period of the judges for almost 300 years. All right. So we spent the vast majority of our time in captivity in our own land, man.
111.
111? Okay, 111 years. All right. It's crazy. Okay. And then when you calculate them all together, man, you're going to be like, it's been over 1,000 years, man. We spent a great portion of time of our existence, man, in captivity, all right, or being oppressed by the nations, okay? So trip up. So that's something that you have to trip out on, man. We're supposed to be a holy people, but all of this is happening, man, because of our transgression. Go ahead. So now the captivity of Israel. Read them. Go ahead and read them all, bro.
The captivity of Israel. The Assyrians, 110 years. 2 Kings 17, 6-9. Babylonians, 70 years. 2 Kings 25 and 21, and also Jeremiah 25 and 11.
Mm-hmm. Check that out. So real quick.
How about it?
So it says the Assyrian captivity was 110 years. All right. So that was the northern kingdom when they went into captivity. Then the Babylonian was 70 years. So as you can see, man, the times are progressively getting longer that we're starting to be in captivity. So remember, we were in our own land. You see that maybe 8 years, 7 years, 20 years, maybe 4 decades. But now the Most High hitting us with even greater lengths of time, man, of being in oppression, all right, because of the transgressions of our ancestors, all right. So you can write all of those scriptures down. If not, you can always go back to the YouTube and scroll through them. All right.
So let me ask you a question.
Go ahead.
Why do you think right now in America it's the longest?
Man, if I could say, I always thought about that. Like, why would America be the longest captivity that we've ever been in, man?
Would you say it's because of the transgression of our nation right now?
The transgression of pretty much, man, all of the past things that our nation has done, man.
Okay.
So of course, like I always look at it like this: how is it, man, that Christ, man, He had gave us, of course, repentance and scriptures and things like that, right? The true understanding, but yet, it became corrupt. You see what I'm saying? So,
I was gonna say, I think the one thing that make the American occupation so different is they took our culture from us.
mm-hmm.
When other nations had us, we still was able to, abide by our customs, and it was a little bit easier because we kind of dwelled with them people before. Although they was different, they were familiar.
Absolutely.
That's why that the American curse is so significant, because it fulfills the prophecies in Deuteronomy where he said he gonna send a fierce and terrible nation.
Bingo. The prophecies, good. That's hitting right on the target. All right. So of course we were prophesied to be in America for over 400 years. Prophecy had to fulfill itself. All right. Many of our fathers had to fall away from the commandments. Okay. Remember, it says in the book of Revelation, the place was prepared for the woman, which that place was here in America. All right. Good. Damn good. Scripture right here too. Everybody got that? Yeah. All right, next slide. So of course, were Israelites already in Africa? All right. So of course, yes, they were. All right. So I gave you a historical account in the Josephus Antiquities 13. I believe it's chapter 13 or book 13, chapter 12, and paragraph 1. All right. So then the biblical accounts: Alexandria, Egypt, Cyrene, Libya, and also Ethiopia, all right, were the other places in which our people were actually located, all right. So remember, Alexandria, Egypt, that was a major metropolitan city, man, for the Greeks, okay, and many of our fathers, the Israelites, they dwelt there. You will also read about that in the book of Maccabees, all right, Second Maccabees, chapter 1, and it explains, man, that there were Jews that were in Alexandria, Egypt, all right, at that time. So that's basically also why Christ had ended up fleeing into Egypt. Why? Because Alexandria, Egypt was a metropolitan city that Israelites dwelt in. You can also write down the book of Acts. It shows you in Egypt and parts of Libya in Cyrene, Philip and the Ethiopian eunuch, and then you have Apollos of Alexandria, Egypt, okay? Brother that was mighty in scripture. All right, so that shows you, man, that Israelites have always had a presence in Africa itself. Okay, so remember, Africa wasn't originally given to us as our land, but of course, as we fled from persecution, and things of that nature. So of course, as I said before, I forgot, I lost track of what I was at. What was I saying before I got distracted?
You was giving the accounts on Apollos and Alexander the Great, Alexander of Egypt, saying he was mighty in the scriptures.
Oh yeah, so Apollos of Alexandria, Egypt was mighty in scripture. All right, so let's go to the next slide. They can't hear me. So now, how were Israelites forced into Africa? Who could tell me how were Israelites forced into Africa?
It was forced in westward by the Romans the last time.
Mm-hmm.
It was common for us to go back and forth. But that last great push was under General Vespucius.
Right, and we're going to go into that account too. So now we're going to get a little history on Rome. Okay, their rise to power, just brief accounts of their rise to power, and also, how they did conquer a people. Okay, let's go ahead. So read that.
History of Rome. Rome was rising power in Western Europe. 168 BC, they conquered the Macedonians. King Perseus. 179 through 168 BC, the son of Philip V in the Third Macedonian War. 171 through 168 BC.
Now check that out. So it says Rome's rise to power in Western Europe, it began in 168 BC, right? Because remember, that's when they had conquered Greece. Okay, and it's giving you account. They conquered the Macedonian king Perseus, all right, the son of Philip the Fifth in the Third Macedonian War, all right. So remember, those wars are very important because it's showing you that this is when Rome began to take complete control of Greece, all right, and as they began to push westward, okay. So then it said, now read on.
And made Greece a Roman province, successfully securing its hold on Eastern Europe.
So they secured their foot in Eastern Europe, all right, according to First Maccabees chapter 8 and verse 5. Read it.
First Maccabees 8 and 5. Besides this, how they had discomfited in battle Philip and Perseus, king of the Scythians, with others that lifted up themselves against them and had overcome them.
So it's showing you how they fought them, and the Greeks did not prevail against the Romans. Go ahead. You can read all of that in the book of First Maccabees, chapter 8 and verse 5. It gives you the full account, man, of the power of Rome and the nations that they took over. All right, go ahead. So now you see that this was the actual territories. All right, the territories, okay, of the nations. All right. So now you see that that's Rome. That's Rome in the blue, and all of the the Confederates of Rome that were there with them. You see, it said that they took over what we know as Greece. All right. So read on. I'm sorry. Go to the next slide. So now read this.
Punic Wars. Long before Rome fought against the Greeks, they engaged in a series of battles called the Punic Wars with the Carthaginians, from 1264 through 146 BC for control of the North Africa and Mediterranean coast in 202 BC. And the Second Punic War, 218 through 201 BC, Roman General Scipio Africus defeated Hannibal at the Battle of Zama in Africa. Rome killed over 20,000 Carthaginians and captured 15 to 20,000 Rome, only losing on the other side about 2,500 Romans.
So that's just giving you a brief account of the Punic Wars and how they fought these wars right before they had ended up taking over the Greeks. Okay. So now remember the Carthaginians. All right. When you read this book from Babylon and Timbuktu, it lets you know that they were Israelites actually. All right. Go ahead.
First Maccabees 8 and 3.
So that's the scriptural reference that I gave. Okay. So it shows you in there, man, that they took Spain from the Carthaginians. All right. So remember, that's the territory in which Rome added. Okay. After the first war, and it shows you the various other wars that they fought and the territories that they added and they gained. Okay. So remember, Carthage was pretty much a very strong seafaring empire that controlled the Mediterranean. All right, for hundreds of years. Okay. So the Romans knew once they conquered Carthage, right, which was a long time enemy of them. Once they took over Carthage, they controlled the entire Mediterranean Sea region and all of the trade routes. So that's pretty much what it was all about, man. You take down the big dog, you control all of, all of the goods and everything, all right? So that's how Rome began to accumulate its power, okay? So they control North Africa from what we see as Zuma, Carthage. They control Spain all the way to Greece, all right? And then they had set their foot in what we know as Egypt later on, okay? Go ahead. So bam. So of course, this is just a map giving you of the Roman Empire, and it's also showing you where many of our people had ended up dwelling, all right? So of course, remember I told you about the Carthaginians, that was Israelites. It shows you we was all throughout Asia Minor. We was in Egypt. We was in Spain. We were in what is that? What's up there?
You're looking at
Britain. I know that's Great Britain, and of course that's Gallica. All right, Germania. We were all there. Okay, so that's just a map, just to show. Go ahead, next slide. So it says, man, as we were scattered as a whirlwind, that's very true, man. We began to migrate all throughout the earth, okay, because our people were looking to run from the persecution and the affliction that was upon them. All right, so this is the Battle of Zuma, okay, in 202 BC that they fought. All right, remember Hannibal, they controlled the war elephants, the Romans, they're the ones on foot. All right, go ahead. So as you can see here, that is a depiction of Hannibal. All right, that is a correct depiction of Hannibal because many of the other images that they do have are whitewashing the heck out of it, like they always do, man. So I love this image right here of Hannibal. Strong Israelite brother. Huh? Go ahead. So now, this is just an account, man, to show you about the Carthaginians. All right, go ahead. So that's page what?
107. Page 106 and 107.
All right, from Babylon to Timbuktu, if you want to read about it. Okay, go ahead. So
this is page 108 and 109.
Yeah, read the underlined part. Actually, read what the star is at the beginning of the second paragraph or the first paragraph right there. On page 108? Yes.
The population.
Yes.
The population of Carthage was derived from the Palestine, and its civilization was Hebraic in origin.
Okay, so it's telling you that the population of Carthage derived from Palestine, all right, meaning Israel, and it was Hebraic in its what?
In its origin.
In its origin, okay, so it had a lot to deal with us. Go ahead.
S.O.I.C is certain, after much research, that the language Hannibal spoke and in which he directed his troops was Hebrew.
So Hannibal spoke Hebrew, all right, and that's how he directed his troops. Okay, go ahead.
There is evidence of the Carthaginians possessed in a high priesthood, and their ceremonies and sacrifices were similar to the rituals found in the book of Leviticus. According to some inscriptions, the Hebrew tribes of Asher and Zebulun were in Carthage from the foundation of the city. At the ruins of the Carthage were excavated many inscriptions containing many Hebrew names such as Joab, Joash, and Joel.
Absolutely. So I'm telling you right there, man, that they excavated the city itself, and they began to find these inscriptions, man, of our people's names. All right. So remember, you weren't going to see no Joab or anything like that. You're going to see it in its ancient Hebrew form. Okay. That was it. So just check that out, man. You get this book from Babylon to Timbuktu. He does go into some good history. All right. Next slide. So now this is going into the account of Rome. All right, Rome oppressing the children of Israel. Okay, so now we've seen a little bit of the history of Rome, how they took over, how they did defeat the Carthaginians who were Israelites. All right, and how they took over the Mediterranean region. Okay, so remember they took once they took all of Spain, North Africa. All they needed now was to control Palestine itself. All right. So dealing with this history, man, check out the Josephus, and he goes into detail, man, about Aristobulus and Hyrcanus II, and just how the Romans manipulated that situation, and they basically took over. Okay, so basically they used Hyrcanus II. He was pretty much their puppet. All right, and they ended up using him as a tool to be able to take over Israel in 65 BC. All right, let's read this.
And then to reference this, and from Babylon to Timbuktu, it'll be on page 84. Luke 21:20 through 21. And when ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, 65 BC, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh.
Absolutely. So of course, in 65 BC, Israel was surrounded by the Roman army. That was the first time it was surrounded. Okay, but they did not destroy the city completely at this time, okay? But as he's going to read it from Babylon to Timbuktu, they actually did, all right, in 70 AD. Well, go ahead, read on.
And then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, Africa, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out, and let not them that are in the countries enter thereinto.
So remember, it talks about the woman that fled into the wilderness. All right, the wilderness was in pretty much Africa, okay? Wilderness is just representing like a desolate place, all right, that is not your homeland. All right. Now read that in the book of from Babylon and Timbuktu, page 84.
From Babylon to Timbuktu, page 84, in the second paragraph. It says, in the year 65 BC, the Roman armies under General Pompey captured Jerusalem. In 70 AD, General Vespasian and his son Titus put an end to the Jewish state with great slaughter. During that period of the military governors of the Palestine, many outrage and atrocities were committed against the residue of the people. During the period from Pompey to Julius, it has been estimated that over 1 million Jews fled into Africa, fleeing from the Roman persecution and slavery. The slave markets were full of black Jewish slaves.
So now check that out. So it said, like you said, this would be prophecy being fulfilled, all right? So of course, as he said, in 70 AD, the Romans came in and they put 65 BC. They came in, they put it into the sovereignty of the Jews. Then in 70 AD, Vespasian and Titus, man, they crushed the Jews, ransacked their temple, slaughtered millions of the people. And as you can see, man, they fled into Africa. All right. So by them fleeing into Africa, we're gonna check out the process in which they went through next. All right, where they went into Africa. Go ahead, next slide. So that's just giving you the account of the page that I gave. Go ahead, next slide. All right, so that's the destruction of Jerusalem. All right, that's when they destroyed, our temple. They took all of our holy vessels. They took the golden menorah that was located in the temple. They took all of our precious things and carried them into their temples. All right. So this is when Jerusalem was completely destroyed. Go ahead. Prophecy fulfilled, man. A prophecy that was contained in Daniel, Daniel chapter 9. All of that was fulfilled, man, when the Romans came in and destroyed the holy city. Okay. So now this is the migration route in which the Jews took after the destruction of the city Jerusalem. All right. So now remember, it said that over 1 million Jews, all right, fled into Africa from Pompey to Julius, right? So remember, this was the migration route they took. Somebody tell me, why didn't they go? Why didn't they take their route through the north, through North Africa? Can anybody tell me why they didn't take their route through North Africa? Why did they have to go south? Why did they have to go through, go south through Egypt to what we know through Sudan all the way down?
Probably because doing the surroundings, it was easier to hide during their enemies. They probably have more, I don't want to say support, but it's easier and harder for the Romans to try to follow them down into the darker nations.
Okay. So pretty much all of North Africa, remember, was Roman territory.
Right.
Remember, because they had destroyed Carthage and all of that territory was there. So whatever Carthage owned, the Romans owned it now. All right. So that was a damn good answer, brother. So of course that's why they had to take a different route. All right, into the interior of Africa. Okay. So that's one of the reasons why. So you can read off the the cities, man, in which they took.
Jerusalem, Memphis,
Memphis in Egypt. Go ahead.
Ephatine,
right, which was a Israelite colony that was in Egypt. Go ahead.
I can't read that one. The other one.
Meroe.
Meroe.
All right, which was an ancient trade city in Sudan. Go ahead.
Khartoum,
another ancient city in Sudan. Go ahead.
Kordofan.
Kordofan. Go ahead.
Shilluk.
Go ahead.
Darfur.
Go ahead.
Wadai. Chad. Kano.
Right. So now you see that they went from, if we go back to the first map of Africa that we did have, so you went from Egypt, Sudan, then they began to travel west. All right. So then they went into Chad, then they went into Nigeria, and then they passed what they call the Niger River, and went into the regions like Benin, Togo, all of that. Okay. Read on. With the other ones.
Yoruba
Uh-huh.
and Ashanti.
Okay, so Aruba and Ashanti. All right.
Oh, Gioka.
No, that's fine.
Oh, okay.
That's dealing with the Songhai Empire.
Right.
Drop down. So basically, this is, like I said, this is the migration route. You can also find this migration route in the book Hebrewisms of West Africa. All right, but it goes into detail on the migration route in here as well. Okay, and from Babylon to Timbuktu when you get it. But go ahead. Next slide. So now the tribes of Israel in Africa, right? So you have many of our Afrocentric brothers and sisters, man, that don't believe that there were Jews in West Africa, which is a lie, because there's still presence of Hebraic culture still there to this very day. All right, check this out. Yeah, among the Ashanti Jews.
Among the Ashantis of the Gold Coast in Ghana
Mm-hmm.
are found Jews who observe many Hebrew customs. They don't fight on Saturday, but they rest.
Right, so they don't do any combat or battle. They do not fight on Saturdays, right? Go ahead.
They celebrate the New Year of the Jews, which occurs in September or early October.
So remember, that's the end of our year, civil year, okay? Go ahead.
They use words like amen at the end of their hymn of thanksgiving, like the Hebrews of old.
Mm-hmm.
They marry in their tribe only.
Right, so they only deal with their nation. All right, go ahead.
They perform cross-cousin marriages.
Mm-hmm.
The Ashanti Jews also observe the laws of the uncleanness at the childbirth, purification ceremony of the 40th day, the ministerial seclusion law,
right,
and the ceremony ablutions.
Absolution. So dealing with like water baptism, things like that, man, that cleanse you. Go ahead.
The Ashanti Jews have a breastplate like the high priest in ancient Israel, and it is divided into 12 parts, representing the 12 tribes of Israel. Also, they have misfit or head dress.
So similar to what Brother Daryl got on his head.
With this gold disc in front, which is an ancient Israel bore inscription, holy unto the Lord.
Right, so all of that you can find in the book of Exodus chapter 28, all right? So dealing with the high priest, man, the meat tree, dealing with the gold plate on the meat tree, all of that you'll find there. So this is, with these, when Rudolph, our wizard, giving this account, man. So remember, this is actually coming from Hebrewisms of West Africa. So the author of Hebrewisms for West Africa, he's actually giving this account, man, of what he actually saw. Okay, go ahead. So then, of course, you have the Black Jews of Dahomey, but we read that. You can read that on your own. It's still on the same page. Go ahead. Next slide. So you have the Ashanti high priest, right? So remember, it said that he was wearing the breastplate, right? And it divided into 12 parts. So when you read in Hebrewisms of West Africa, it does give you account of the high priest or the sons of Aaron going into Africa, right? And combating many of the nations, the Hamitic nations that were there. Okay, so they did set a precedence while they were in Africa, actually. All right, go ahead. So go ahead and read that. The Hebrew word Ashan.
Hebrew word Ashan. Joshua 15:42. Ashan from 6225. Smoke, literally or figuratively, vapor, dust, anger, smoke.
Right. So now this was a city, okay, that was basically within the territories of Judah, but this city was given to the children of Simeon. All right. So this was a city in which they named Ashan, okay, meaning smoke. All right. So that's why when you see Ashanti, meaning Ashan, meaning the people, T meaning people, Ashan. So the people of Ashan, okay. So who are the people of Ashan? The Hebrew Israelites, all right, the tribe of Simeon. Simeon, excuse me. Go ahead and read that.
The Yoruba Jews in Nigeria. There are Black Jews in southern Nigeria who are called the Imo Yo Kwain, or strange people.
So these are Black Jews in southern Nigeria. So remember, if if you've done any research on the Igbos, that's who they say they also are Israelites. Of course, many of the African Americans today, they say do stem from, do come from Nigeria, right? So remember, we saw in the migration of the Israelites that they did go into, regions of Nigeria as well. So we had set ourselves, of course, in Nigeria, all right, southern Nigeria. Go ahead.
Read on.
You can read a little bit more.
By the native Africans, but these black Jews call themselves by the Hebrew name Binah Ephraim, or sons of Ephraim.
Right, and they still are there till this very day. You can look them up for yourself. Binah Ephraim, okay, for the sons of Ephraim. All right. So you can go ahead.
These Jews, which claim that their ancestors immigrated from Morocco, a fact of which Gabi says is supported by their language, a mixture of Maghrebi Arabic and local Negro speech.
So of course it said that they migrated to North Africa, Morocco, Africa, and they came down to what we know as Nigeria. All right, so that's where they migrated from. So remember, many of the trade routes of North Africa, you see they go into West Africa as well. All right, you can read about a lot of that stuff too, like the heavy migration, the heavy trade routes in a book called The Black Jews of Africa. Go ahead.
Next slide. Okay.
Yeah, next slide. So this is on page 131 from Babylon to Timbuktu. So now, this is from Babylon to Timbuktu, and this is dealing with showing you the presidents in which, our people set in Africa, all right? So you can read from, they could not.
They could not afford to be complacent or apathetic. They were hated, so apathy could mean cultural stagnation or death. The Jews imported into the western part of Africa a superior material, educational, and moral culture soon after 300 AD. And this cultural advancement was not duplicated or exceeded until the ascendancy of the Mohammedan leader Mansa Khan Musa of Mali in 1312 AD. In the 3rd of the 4th centuries AD, the Africans of the West Coast did not possess the cultural superiority of the Africans of the North and East Coast. The black Jews had an advantage over the African tribes. They carried their culture, history, laws, and written records with them.
Now hold it right there. So, Brother Darrell, tell me, what is the importance, man, of having your culture, your history, laws, and your written records?
Something that guides you, something that reach back to when you're not structured in.
Nationality.
So something that you can actually seek your roots into.
Absolutely. That is absolutely correct. All right. So pretty much, man, you have your history. All right. You have your culture. Remember that identifies you. That's what makes you, you know what I'm saying, who you are. Okay. Your laws and things that govern you, also your records, right? So remember, we have records. All of our records are right here, found in this very Bible, all right, of our ancestors. Okay. Go ahead.
This assured them of a constant precedent for the development of a higher social organization. Because of the stability of the black Jewish culture, the Jews were not absorbed into the autochthonous population.
The native population. Go ahead.
In fact, the Jews absorbed some of the native tribes.
So we began to absorb many of the native tribes within us, all right? So remember that curse, man, in Deuteronomy 28, I believe it's like 44, where it says, the nation that is within thee shall get above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. So that's pretty much what happened to us at the end of the day, man. Many of those nations started to sell us out. You see what I'm saying? So all of the little African nations, man, like the ones from Benin and Togo and all of that, they began to sell us out, man, and send, and trade us, man, to the so-called Grecians. Go ahead.
The Jews made use of every opportunity. They were industrious and skillful people. In the Jewish Ghanaian states were found kings, princes, governors, generals, secretaries, treasurers, revenue agents, judges, architects, engineers, doctors, historians, language interpreters, mathematicians, jewelers, sculptors, masons, carpenters, painters of art, goldsmiths, leather workers, potters, armors, saddlers, blacksmiths, agriculturalists, etc.
What you say?
etc. Excuse me.
Right. So that was it. So pretty much, man, it's just showing you, man, the type of skills, man, that our people had and the occupations, man, that they were about. All right. So many of them slaves, man, that came over here, we was worth something. We was educated, man. We was about it. We had historians. We had blacksmiths. You know what I'm saying? Remember, blacksmiths, goldsmiths, man. You're dealing with those who are sharp in all type of curious words, man. So the slaves over here weren't dumb. You see what I'm saying? So everybody had a particular skill that they were good at. You know. So that's why I always say, man, whenever I bring this out, I tell people, man, like, look, man, we was the gold that they brought over to the Americas. Only thing that they was doing was breaking us from, from our natural state, knowing who we were exactly. That was the only thing that they was doing, right? The skills, the things that we possessed and all that, we kept all of that. But they just took away that you was Israel. You see what I'm saying? Go ahead, man. Oh, go ahead.
That's funny because they make you think you just was a slave, you was nothing.
That's how they show it in the movies, man. For real, you know. You're right. That's how they do. That's how they portray it in the movies, man. But we were more than that, man. We were more than just servants, man. We built this place up. You know what I mean? So that's what it takes, man. You don't think we taught they dumb children mathematics? You don't think that we made their jewelry? You know what I mean? You don't think that, shoot, man, our people were like politicians, man, in this country? Absolutely.
I heard we built. There's a book that said we built like almost 200 and something inventions that the slave owners took because of that property law.
Yeah.
And just the slave built it to make his life easier. Slave master took it for himself and got money for it.
Exactly. That was it, man. They still do it now.
Yeah.
They still do it now to us, man. So of course, generals. So we was in their military, man. Shoot, we was fighting for them, man. We fought in the Revolutionary War, all of that stuff. So to say, man, that the slaves that came over, or the quote unquote Africans that came over to the Americas had no particular importance, man, is a lie. You know what I mean? How the hell do you think the Haitians, man, were able to revolt against, I believe, the French? You see what I'm saying? Because many of them, man, were military leaders, masters, you know what I'm saying, of war. All right, and they were able to crush their enemies. All right, they just like, hey, you got the top dogs, like, hey, you know what? We got to get our people together, man. We got to take these cats out. They too soft. So go ahead, next slide. So now this is the transatlantic slave trade, okay? So this is from the 1600s to 1808, all right? So that's approximately about like 300 years, right? That we were being bought, sold, and traded, man, in a triangular trade, okay? From Africa, West Africa, to the Americas, back to what we know as Europe, okay? So you could just see some of the commodities, man, which we were sold for. You can read some of them off, bro.
Iron bars, glass and glass beads, guns, cotton cloth, sugar, rum, cotton, tobacco.
Right. So those are some of the manufactured goods that the Europeans were sending into Africa and giving to those Africans. All right. And in return for what? Middle passage. Under it. Read under it. Slaves. Right. So of course the manufactured goods. So from Europe, they brought manufactured goods into Africa, guns and all of that stuff. That's why them Africans, man, they drink themselves silly and shoot each other. You know what I'm saying? Then of course, remember, all of that was planned anyway. So then from there you have slaves going into the Middle Passage or the West Indies and getting ready for going to the Americas. All right. Then from the Americas, the raw materials, like what? Read some of the raw materials.
What are you talking about?
Read some of the raw materials in the Americas.
Oh, rum.
Rum.
Cotton. Tobacco.
And tobacco, right? So the white people like to smoke themselves silly. They like what was that say? Sugar?
Sugar.
Oh man, they was addicted to sugar. Sugar was like crack to them Caucasians, man. So of course, rum. Of course, they loved all type of exotic drinks, and of course, cotton was one of the major commodities of the South, man. That was coming out of America. All right, cotton was used for many different things. Okay, also to make clothes, all of that. All right.
I just found something about Jack Daniels. Y'all heard about that? You heard about Jack Daniels? Hold on, I'm trying to find it real quick.
I couldn't believe it.
It said the slaves who taught Jack Daniel how to make whiskey after 150 years. So they learned that from a slave, how to make Jack Daniels. And the crazy thing is, when they take the tour, they have this picture of the dude, I forget his name, that helped with the Jack Daniels, one of the sons or something, next to the slave in there. And they get a lot of questions about it, but now they're starting to embrace it and tell people that this is where they got this recipe of how to make this Jack Daniel.
Yes, we
Now,
got
you
the.
chance, you really think that's because of the new brainwashing that they're trying to do something to our people and say, well, we brought you guys over as liberated workers.
Yeah.
Because clearly people have questions and think about what that man's family would be entitled to.
Exactly.
Billions of dollars.
That's a lot of missing wages.
Billions of dollars.
Exactly.
Man. Just think about how much any of us would be entitled right now. You know what I'm saying? For our labor and our work.
I believe that the Hebrew Israelites are the only nation that haven't received any reparations.
So remember, like you was telling me, man, about the the Native Americans, they received pretty much their reparations as far as the money that's given to them, man. But shoot, they still had their land stolen to them. They like, here's the money. You can stay on that little piece of patch of land that we gave you, because the rest of it is ours. That's cold game, man. But go ahead, next slide. So this is the Deuteronomy 28. In verse 68. So this is this is one of the most famous scriptures, man, of course, that that we use, all right, to prove, man, that that this is how we came over here to the Americas, all right.
Deuteronomy 28 and 68. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies and for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you.
Absolutely. So again, the Lord said that He will bring us into bondage again with ships. All right. So no other nation, man, can stake the claim, man, that they were taken into captivity by way of ships. All right. And it says, and were sold in recorded history, sold as bondmen and bondwomen, where no one has saved us. All right, so as you can see today, man, no man has saved us. We're still here, you know what I mean, in America, prisoners. All right, they say, oh yeah, you can go here, you can go there, but as a nation, where can we go? Nowhere. All right, go ahead. So these are the cargo slave ships, as you can see. These are like the models for them. All right, so check that out. So you can see how they tightly pack the slaves, man, into those ships. All right, so that's actually the bottom of the ship. All right, where they placed all of the slaves, man. Go ahead, next one.
Trying to find a movie that talks about dealing with the slaves. We'll find it.
So this is a little closer-up image, man, of how they had laid the slaves. So this was called tight packing. All right, where slaves were chained, man. Can you imagine us being chained together? This brother being chained together. You know what I'm saying? And like you got like brothers on top of us. You know what I mean? And it's like, man, we're on a boat, being swayed up and down, just laying there, can't do nothing. You know what I mean? That's some heavy stuff. All right, next slide. So that's a little bit more of the depiction, man, of the conditions on the slave ship. Next slide. So now, let's see who benefited also from slave labor, okay? So this is the part of history that they don't talk about, all right? So you can Wikipedia this. Of course, this is dealing with the Jewish wealth, all right? So check this out.
Jewish wealth. Groups of Jews began to arrive in Suriname in the middle of the 17th century after the Portuguese regained control of northern Brazil.
So this is in South America. America is, you know, is the continent, of course, where, you know, a vast majority of our people, man, are there, man. So the vast majority, say Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, that's where they at right now. All right, go ahead.
By 1694, 27 years after the British had surrendered Suriname to the Dutch, there were about 100 Jewish families and 50 single Jews there.
We're not talking about the peons, all right, the poor ones, right? We're talking about these are the big banking families. All right, go ahead.
Or about 570 persons. They possessed more than 40 estates and 9,000 slaves.
Check that out. 40 estates and 9,000 slaves. Go ahead.
And contributed 25,905 pounds of sugar as a gift for the building of a hospital, and carried on an active trade with Newport and other colonial ports.
Okay, so now this is what they trading of sugars and things of that nature, right? So of course,
by 1730, Jews owned 115 plantations and were a large part of a sugar export business, which sent out 21,680,000 pounds of sugar to European and New World markets in 1730 alone.
Check that out. Over 115 plantations. So we talking about the same type of plantations that you see here in America. They had them in South America. You see what I'm saying? And they owned them. All right. So and he said, and were the large part of a sugar export business, which sent almost 21 million pounds, man, worth of sugar, man, to Europe. So remember, like I said, sugar was that crack to them. You know what I mean? They was fiending for that sugar. All right. So that was like their profit. That's how they made, you know, big bank for them, man, in the New World. Okay. Read on.
Slave trading was a major feature of the Jewish economic life in Suriname, which as a major stopping off point in the triangular trade. Both North American and Caribbean Jews played a key role in this commerce. Records of slave sale in 1707 revealed that 10 largest Jewish producers, 10,400 guilders, spent more than 25% of the total funds, 38,605 guilders exchanged.
So check that out. They spent major money for slaves, okay?
So much more.
115. Check that out.
I've heard some crazy stories about those plantations down in the Caribbean and in South America. You know, they get those Sundays off.
Right.
You know, and I've heard stories where they even had to work to where their arms got attached, you know, fell off.
Now check that out. So now you see who's the culprit, who was behind it, who owned it, actually. You know what I'm saying? And they were the Jewish people, man. Your so-called Amalekites, all right? Next slide. Amalekites.
Right, and if you think about the history from where they come from, it don't even make sense on why they work their slaves so hard. You know.
That goes back to that hatred, man.
Yeah.
That's the hatred for us. All right. So now these are the Jewish slave ships, all right, and their owners, okay? So it shows you, man, how crooked these cats were, right? So this is beyond the good ship Jesus. We talking about, man, just read some of the slave ships.
Name of ships: Abigail, Crown, Nassau, Four Sisters, Annie and Eliza, Pert and Betty, Hester, Elizabeth, Antigua, Betsy, Polly, White Horse, Expedition, Charlotte, Caracoa.
Check that out. And all of them what? Jews. So all of them were owned by Jewish people. All right. So that's the part of the history, man, that they don't want to tell you, but they tell it. Oh, remember the Holocaust. Remember the Holocaust. Well, do you know that your people own slaves?
These are the same Jews that was in Germany.
Yes.
Primarily.
Yes. They just made their migration over to the Americas, man, to capitalize off the wealth. Right. You know what I mean? Of the New World, man. That's it.
Probably how they was planning on trying to take Germany over. That's what, you know.
They was making money.
They had enough money to do it, and I see why now. It all makes so much sense.
No. They was making their money, man. And like I said, man, but this was just one of their avenues, man. Slavery, like I said, was big business, man. Especially like when you traffic in humans, humans that were mathematicians, goldsmiths, jewelers, masons, so on and so forth, right? That had these special skills and abilities, man. There was more than just field workers. You had men that had skill, women that had skill, all right, and the abilities that the Most High blessed us with, and they pretty much they used us for those abilities. All right, go ahead. Next slide. So now this is dealing with Ezekiel chapter 19. So this is going into the provinces or what happened to us in Africa. Read this.
Ezekiel 19:4. The nations also heard of him. He was taken in their pit, and they brought him with chains into the land of Egypt.
Absolutely. Europeans, your Arabs, your Africans, right? It says they heard of him, which is Israel, and they had taken him in their pits, right? Their slave ships, and they brought them with chains into the land of Egypt, dealing with America. Because remember, America is spiritually called Sodom and Egypt, all right? So read on.
Ezekiel 19:8. Then the nations set against him on every side from the province of Africa and spread their net over him. He was taken in their pit. Verse 9. And they put him in a ward and chains and brought him to the king of Babylon. They brought him into holds, that his voice should no more be heard upon the mountains of Israel.
Absolutely. So in the spirit, man, talking about the provinces, remember, of Africa, the different provinces which we were located. All right, and it's going to show you on the next slide. And it says he spread their net over, meaning they began to capture them, and he took them to their pits. Okay, those slave ships, and they brought them in chains to the king of Babylon. All right, and it says then they brought him into holds, meaning slave markets, that his voice be no more heard upon the mountains of Israel. So they wanted to get us as far away from our land as possible. All right, they didn't even want us in Africa. So they wanted the vast majority of our nation to never be able to come back. All right, but that was all prophecy, man, according to script. Go to the next slide. All right, so these are the provinces. Our Israelites were taken from Africa in different regions. As you can see, it's just showing you, like, say for instance, you got Sengambi, you have the Gold Coast, you have Sierra Leone, Liberia, Togo, Benin, and it's just giving you the numbers: 400,000, 120,000, 350,000. What's that? 150,000. You know what I'm saying? In West Central, you know what I'm saying? Angola. You have Gabon, Cameroon, you know what I'm saying? You got all these different places. So you can see that they took the vast majority of their slaves, man, from West Central Africa, which is over 1 million. You talk about from Angola, Gabon, and all of them alone. That's where they took the most, man, which is heavy. Yeah. So it says the height of the slave trade is in the red, all right? So check that out. Read that real quick. The height of it. What's the dates for it? 17 what?
1701 to 1750.
No. In the red.
In the box, right?
Yeah, in the small box, the red column. What's the date?
1751 through 1800.
Right, look at that. 1700 to 1851, man. That was like the height of the slave trade for them. All right. And that's when they was taking like the maximum amount of the slaves. Okay, so next slide. So it's a trip, man. It's definitely a trip. So you're looking at millions of souls, man, that were taken from one place, man, and transported to another. Not to mention all of the souls that were lost, man, before we even came over to the middle to the West Indies. You know what I mean? So that's showing you they were taken in the nets. They were captured. Go ahead. They were captured, taken to the pit. So as you can see, those are like the castles, which they still are there today in Africa, where they kept them there. They locked them up, and then basically they had them board on them slave ships. All right, go ahead. So this is another map showing how we were scattered throughout the Western Hemisphere. All right, as you can see, the vast majority of our people, man, were taken to South America. A good portion are still in the West Indies, and then, of course, as you can see where we're at now, in North America. All right, go ahead. So this is the book of Joel, chapter 3, starting at verse 1.
Joel 3:1. For behold, in those days and in that time when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem, I will also gather all nations and will bring them down to the valley of Josaphat, and will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land.
So all the nations, man, have part in, scattering the children of Israel, meaning through slavery. All right, so remember, we ain't even got to the Arabs, man, and the East African slave trade that was going on, and how they began to scatter us through the Middle East and into places like of Arabia. Go ahead.
And they have cast lots for my people and have given a boy for an harlot, and sold a girl for wine.
Right, so they giving a boy for a harlot, for wine. You selling our daughters for nothing, right? So boys for harlot. I know. Have you ever seen that the document on the movie Goodbye Uncle Tom? Yeah, man. So you seen, man, how they was like rubbing the little boys down in the gold and in the silver. You know what I mean? Those boys, man, were sex toys. You know what I mean? For them gay white men. They came. And spent the night at they associate's house. So they would penetrate them boys, man. They would turn our boys into harlots, man. Of course, you seen the scene, man, with the little midget dude, the little Israelite midget was having the sisters dance and shake their behind. You know what I'm saying? Sex sells, right? Strippers and all that stuff, man. So our people had a big part in that stuff, man. But that's what happens. All right. So boy for a harlot and sold a girl for wine that they might drink, man. So that's just crazy. Go ahead. So this is a great image, man, and a depiction of what happened during the slave trade, all right, of our enemies, man, bargaining, for human cargo, all right. So as you can see, you see the black Ishmaelite, right? You talk about in his natural form, black Ishmaelites, all right. You see the black Africans, you see what I'm saying, and then you see the white Grecian or the white man, okay, selling who? Hebrew Israelites, all right? These were not Africans selling Africans. These were Africans, Arabs, and Caucasians selling Israelites. Point blank, period. All right, so slave auctions. You see our women were sold, daughters were sold. Go ahead. So as you can see, they were sold, man, naked. Sex sells, as I said before, man. So, you have all of these horny white men that will buy these women, man, to fulfill their lust of the flesh. Could you imagine that, your daughter being sold? And there's nothing that you could do about it. That's why the Lord said it was a curse that no power would be in your hand to do anything. There was nothing you could do. You just had to watch your family be divided and treated any kind of way. Go ahead. So Negroes being sold, go ahead. So of course, remember we're going back to the definition of, of Ham, all right, not the Negroes. So of course it shows you that the Negroes are of a Shemitic stock, man. So these were Shemitic people, man, that were being sold into slavery. All right. Go ahead. So now these are your Arabs. Now we can just keep going fast forward. You don't have to read it. So you can write it down. Amos chapter 1, 3 through 5. So this is dealing with your Arabs and the atrocities, man, in which they committed. So I know we kind of spent for time. So we're just gonna kind of go through it. So just show you some of the images. So a little bit. So of course, as you can see, those are the Israelites being taken into captivity by the Arabs. And then they're being sold to the Europeans. All right, go ahead. So this right here, this is Tipu Tip, and he was a slave trader, all right, of Zanzibar. Let's read a little bit of history on him.
He was known by the natives of Southeast Africa as Tipu Tip. after the sound that his many guns made. A slave trader, plantation owner, and governor who worked for a succession of sultans of Zanzibar. He led many trading expeditions into Central Africa involving the slave trade and ivory trade. He also constructed profitable trading posts that reached deep into Central Africa.
So, as you can see, he was also responsible there for taking many Israelites into slavery as well. Okay, go ahead.
Tipple Tip built himself a trading empire that he then translated into clove plantations on Zanzibar. Abdul Sharif reported that when he left for his 12 years of empire building on the mainland, he had no plantation of his own. However, by 1895, he had acquired 7 Shambas plantations and 10,000 slaves.
So this man, he basically pretty much had a mini empire. You know what I mean? He had 7 plantations, man. So just imagine you got over 7 factories, man, 7 corporations, and you got over 10,000 workers. None of them. And you reaping all of the benefits. You reaping all of the benefits from it. Everything. Go ahead. So this was the East African slave trade, the 1500s to about the 1900s. All right. So of course, we're just showing you, man, the routes in which slaves were being taken back into the East. Okay, and traded in the different places. All right. Go ahead. So this is Ishmael and Edom. Okay. So remember, they were in cahoots. Now this is dealing with your Africans or your Hamites selling Israelites to the Europeans. Go ahead. So now this is what I really want to go to before we close out. All right. So this is the history of the kingdom of the homie. So now read this and pay close attention to this too.
The history of the kingdom of the homie spans 300 years from around 1600 until 1900, with the rise of the kingdom of the homie as a major power of the Atlantic coast in modern-day Benin until French conquest.
Right. So now this is when I talk about how the African nation man began to come back into power. Right. We began to decrease in power. Go ahead.
The kingdom became a major regional power in the 1720s when it conquered the coastal kingdoms of Ahla and Wida.
So those were Israelite kingdoms that they conquered. Okay, go ahead.
With control over these key coastal cities, Dahomey became a major center of the Atlantic slave trade until 1852, when the British imposed a naval blockade to stop the trade.
So they had in order for them to stop exporting slaves, they had to perform a blockade. All right. So remember, at that time, the slave trade had already been outlawed in 1852. Remember, it was outlawed in 1808. Okay, so they had to literally stop them. Go ahead.
War with the French began in 1892, and the French took over the kingdom of Dahomey in 1894. The throne was vacated by the French in 1900, but the royal families and key administrative positions of the administration continued to have a large impact in the politics of the French administration and the post-independence Republic of Dahomey, renamed in Benin in 1975.
All right, so now you stop there. Check this out. So you want to know the names of the tribe that sold us into slavery? Check this out.
The kings of Dahomey sold their.
So this is dealing with the farm. All right, in the slave trade, in their role. Go ahead.
The kings of Dahomey sold their war captives into transatlantic slavery, captives who would otherwise have been killed in a ceremony known as the annual customs. The empire traded with Europeans from the 16th to the 19th century, reaching its great economic boom to the late 18th century because of the slave trade.
Right, so they profited heavily on selling Israelites into slavery. Go ahead.
In the 18th century, the empire invaded Arda and Wida, export ports of many slaves. Thus, export ports were Arda, Wida, and Porto Novo, current Benin, and Badagry and Lagos, Nigeria.
Right, so those are other countries they got their slaves from.
Literature 1961-5. In the Juan Lescano historian's opinion, before of 1700 defined of why the Dahomey sold to European traders, members of the following tribes: Lascano, 1950-74, Wida, Popo, Aja, residents in southern eastern Togo and Benin southeast, Kateo, perhaps the city of the same name, Benin, Iwa, and Mai, residents of Apoming, the old capital of the Dahomey Empire. Since 1700, they sold to European traders many Yorubas.
Absolutely. So remember, we saw that Jews, okay, according to from Babylon to Timbuktu, all right. So you see that these people, man, they were literally behind, man, the selling, man, of our ancestors, man, over here to the Europeans, all right. Now, just show them the picture real quick, and we'll stop there. Now we got the baby getting restless. All right, so that's one of the kings of the Dahomey. That's how they set up. You still see the same setup even to this very day. Go ahead. So this was their, according to the book. That's a book that I have called The Pictorial History of the Slave Trade. These were the rituals in which they performed against the war on the war captives, which were Israelites. Go ahead. So those were the rituals. They would cut, behead. They would basically chop our people into pieces, man, in honor of their great victory that their gods gave them. Go ahead. So we'll stop there. So the next part, man, is going to deal with pretty much Esau. So remember, we're spent for time. All right. So of course, you know, are there any questions pertaining to the lesson? If not, then we'll close out and we'll send up our prayers. All right. So
with that, we'll say shalom online. Hope you guys had a good last day of Sabbath.